I have the insider of insiders. It is always a delight to have someone with the talent, with the connections, just with the fun vibes. That is Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle. He's been at practices. He was with the team in Hawaii. We're talking Warriors. Let's get into it. This is the Golden Days.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win. It was a pretty crazy night.
Let's go.
In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Come on and break me off. Cause I get what I want and I like what I see. If you
Sam Gordon in the house. Woo! Welcome to the Golden Days. I'm your host, Cyrus Saatsaz. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at DogWild, over on Twitter at Surf Journalist, and the program is on all social media platforms at Golden Days Pod. Sam Gordon, you can follow him on Twitter at @BySamGordon. And before we get started real fast, got to give some love to the official sponsor of Golden Days, and that is Bet Online. And Sam, I'm definitely going to get you involved in this because Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. When it comes to gambling, that is what's going on right now. Sam, before we talk Warriors and do introductions and all that stuff, are you a football fan? And if yes, who is your team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say I'm a fan of the league as just a whole. I'm from Minneapolis, so I follow the Vikings very closely. My best friend, Dane Mizutani, covers the Vikings for the St. Paul Pioneer Press, so I'm always staying tapped in with his coverage. And of course, I cover the Raiders for 4 years in Vegas, so I follow what they're doing as well. Got some great friends that cover that team, but in general, I just love the NFL. I love football on Sundays. I love it on Mondays. I love it on Thursdays. I like it on Saturdays too. So happy we got football season and NBA season and the WNBA playoffs and Major League Baseball playoffs all going on right now. It's a great time of the year.
October is fantastic when it comes to sports. And there's nothing wrong with being prideful about the purple people eaters. Dude, the Vikings are, if I'm not mistaken, are undefeated. Your team is rolling. Sam Darnold is gunslinging. And if people are betting on the Vikings or whatever you're betting on, it could be the Major League Baseball playoffs. You might have won some money tonight on the Minnesota Lynx advancing to the WNBA finals. Whatever it is, Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. And if you think you know your stuff, get in on the $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. And when the game's over, kick back, put your feet up, relax, pour yourself a stiff one, light them up if you got them, and head on over to BetOnline's online casino to get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. And again, Sam Gordon, follow him on Twitter at @BySamGordon, BY in front of the name. Sam, it is great to see you, man. And how was Hawaii, dude? Enlighten myself and the audience on what it's like to cover the Golden State Warriors while being on Oahu, man. That sounds amazing. How was it for you?
Well, Cyrus, in the words of the great Frank Ocean, I'm gonna go with tropical vibes, coconut milk, and shaved ice.
Oh,
tremendous,
beautiful!
Right? What better way to start? I mean, no better way to start the season, certainly for the Warriors. I had a great time out there. It seemed like the team really did too. It's, a tried and true training camp, going a camp away from home, being at the same spot, a lot of team building, team bonding from the sounds of it, and great energy after practice when we were allowed in the gym to see what was going on. So it was a great trip. I didn't get sunburned. That's always the goal. When I go somewhere tropical, I was able to protect my skin and overall have a great time getting a feel for what this Warriors team might be like in 24-25. So it was a lot of fun. Appreciate you asking.
Yeah, of course, dude. I appreciate you, period, let alone you taking time out to come on the show. Yeah, you wrote the last 2 pieces you wrote, especially the second to last one is the theme of today's show, which is rotations, minutes, and how the hell there's going to be enough minutes for all these players, man. This is a very wing dominant team. And I want to get into the specifics with you, at least in terms of what you've researched. But real quick, going back to Hawaii, man, what was the daily itinerary? Like, what time were you, like, was it early mornings? Are people sleeping in and just getting a late start? Like, what time does the day start? And then what was the daily routine? Like, was it 6 hours of basketball, maybe just 2? And then like what was the average daily routine for you and for the team you're covering?
Well, the Warriors were staying up on the North Shore, and they were practicing at the campus of BYU Hawaii, which is about 45 minutes to an hour anywhere from there, from Waikiki Beach, which is where I was staying. So, there's 3-hour time difference. They were early mornings, and the Warriors practiced around, say for the first day, it was a little later the first day. They got in late Monday night, and then went later into Tuesday afternoon. But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, early afternoon practices and media availability after, and then it was straight to writing after that, and then back to the hotel in Honolulu. So it was definitely a business trip, but again, what better place to conduct business? There's no better place than Hawaii. So that was the skinny of it. Of course, the preseason game on Saturday was at the University of Hawaii. There was an incredible turnout. The locals love basketball, the NBA. I mean, there's a lot of enthusiasm when you get the Warriors to come out. Obviously, the Clippers as well. Packed house, great reactions, and really a cool vibe for a preseason game. You could tell it meant something to everybody there, given what a novelty it was to have the NBA. So all in all, it went by really quick, but it was a productive trip. There was plenty of basketball. And when we weren't in the gym, there was plenty of talking about basketball, thinking about basketball, so on and so forth. So it was good.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. May I ask, I know this is a weird question, and I thought of it largely because Zero in the chat asked, traffic gets pretty rough on Oahu. And it made me think, like, so if you were staying near Waikiki, I believe that's the south side of Oahu. Yep. So is it a bad commute? Like, and why stay so far away from where they're practicing and playing?
It was significantly more affordable.
Okay, all right, love it. I love it.
Drive up. You only got a couple lanes. You get down to one lane going both ways. But that being said, despite maybe some slower traffic, the scenery it feels like it's make believe. I mean, the mountains and the greenery on the mountains is lush and vibrant. The ocean. You take a look to the right, and there's the ocean, and it made like we're on these islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It just absolutely incredible. So I tried to enjoy it and make the most out of the drives. Again, Zero's right. There was definitely traffic, but being that was my first 4 times driving up to the up to northern Oahu, like I'll take it. I can make it happen, and definitely a spot that I want to visit when I get back on my own time recreationally.
Oh yeah. Being in Hawaii, were the players and coaches and anyone else who is worthy of being interviewed, were they more accessible? Were they more closed off? And was that your first time in Hawaii?
Second time.
Okay.
I went on for a wedding last summer. So it was my second time. But I would say generally, yeah. I mean, the vibes were very, very relaxed. I mean, this was very, very serious. It's training camp. The Warriors are handling business and developing the style that they want to play, putting a lot of stuff in place. But how can you not enjoy yourself when you're in Hawaii and be relaxed? So that was that kind of demeanor. Felt like it was pretty unilateral amongst everybody that was there. Everybody was sharing in this experience. Media, team, everybody was. It was. We were out in Hawaii for training camp. It was awesome. So yeah, relaxed vibes. Great to be out there and great to see the Warriors, interact with one another and start developing chemistry in a really cool place to do that.
Yeah, and I just love the fact that you got paid to go to Hawaii, man. That's it's not easy to say that, especially being honest.
I'm blessed. It's an honor and privilege. Absolutely.
Absolutely, brother. And I'm glad you got there and back safe. And the Warriors with a fantastic win, man. I mean, that was a fun game, a game winner by Lindy Waters. With no time remaining on the clock to go home happy. It was fantastic. And it was really interesting too, because like on the same day you published the story in the Chronicle about the 50-year anniversary of the 74-75 Warriors, who also went to Hawaii for training camp. I get a call from Rick Barry and he just randomly starts telling me the story. I didn't know you were writing this as well. And Rick's telling me the story, and I'm like, dude, can you come on the show now to talk about that? I didn't know it was the 50-year anniversary of your Hawaii trip, and that that you went to Hawaii for training camp of that season, and you wrote this fantastic piece. What inspired you to write that? Like I got a call about it, which was super random, and I jumped on it, man. I imagine the moment you learned about the story, it was you probably had similar motivations to get going and write this piece. It was a great piece. You got some other Warriors players besides Rick contributing, but what inspired that? And was there anything interesting you learned as you're writing this piece about the 74-75 Warriors?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot. I mean, I think just, I love NBA history, basketball history in general, history of the Bay Area, history of whatever. The past informs the present. We have to understand where we came from in order to understand where we're going, right? So, once I found out about that it was the 50th anniversary, it was something I didn't know. I didn't know until this trip was coming up, and then you take a look, you see that they went out there in 1974, and it was just kind of something I wanted to highlight and get into based on my own fascination and interest with that particular team. But it was totally a learning experience for me. I had known that they were out there for 2 weeks, what the demeanor and of the camp was like, and ultimately the big takeaway from putting that together is the importance of team chemistry, right? That's not necessarily anything new. We understand that the best teams in any sport, it's a prerequisite almost, right? At least on the floor. Not everybody has to be best friends, but you have to make it work on the floor. What better way to do that than to develop relationships off the floor? That's what that team did. And clearly, one of the OG underdogs to win a championship in NBA history. And from, the people I talked to, right? Rick Barry, Charles Dudley, Clifford Ray, they all made it abundantly clear that team became a family during that 2-week period on that trip. And there was a lot of trust developed, friendships that have lasted 50 years that carry on today, and ultimately friendships and trust that carried them on the court to the first championship in the Bay for the franchise in the Bay Area. So just hearing about what camp was like, how old school training camps were back then was pretty cool too. How intense some of those practices were. But again, the Warriors came out on the other side of that, a team and a family, and as they say, right, the rest is history, and that thing got it all started. So you have to imagine that the Warriors, this year are hoping for something similar. Not necessarily, obviously, you hope to win a championship, but in terms of the chemistry and whatnot, and based on what I saw at practice today, last 15, 20 minutes were open. We got to see different drills going on. There was some king of the court, Steph getting his shooting workout in. There was some player development stuff, some action with coaches on another far court, and then some shell drills. So everybody seemed to be, having a good time, and it was very competitive and high level, but at the same time, guys seemed to really be enjoying each other, right? So when you're having a new team, a changeover, a lot of differences, a lot of changes on the staff, changes in the rotation, super formative, I think, just like it was for 1974. We'll see what the results are, but it seems like the trip had its attendant effect in 2024 of building chemistry and cohesion.
Absolutely. Dude, building chemistry is not something that gets dated, right?
No.
Building chemistry in the 70s, building chemistry in the 2020s, same thing. It's all about communicating, bonding, forming these relationships in person, especially, right? Especially nowadays in a digital era, which was not the case in the 70s. Face-to-face is still face-to-face. Interpersonal communication is still the same. And again, you could read the piece that Sam wrote last week. You could watch the show with Rick last week here on Golden Days. Fantastic stuff, man. I was very new to this as well in terms of learning about, the trials and tribulations of that 74-75 team in training camp, being in Hawaii, all the, the rigor that led to that title, greatest upset in professional sports history. You covered that aspect of it as well. It was awesome. So if you're a Warriors fan, highly recommend checking that out. And you mentioned, Sam, practice today. You've been going to practice. You're covering this team in an excellent manner. And one thing I want to tell the audience before we continue with conversation in the interview is people should follow you on Twitter because you're posting a lot of videos, man, of some of the drills, the shoot arounds. It's great stuff, dude. So I just want to tell people, follow Sam Gordon on Twitter @BySamGordon. BY Sam Gordon is how you spell it. And in the chat, Zero's on fire as well, reminding folks to get the likes in. Please do that as well. I know that helps with the algorithm. But Sam, your Twitter feed is fantastic, man, in terms of Warriors content. So how are these practices, dude? Like you're observing these players together, playing together, communicating together. I saw this video of the pregame shoot around in Hawaii before the Warriors and Clippers played, of Steph and Brandon Pajemski doing this fun little drill where they each put up threes and they kind of jump in the air and do like a body slam to each other. It was awesome, man. Little things like that go a far distance in team sports. You know this. I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience know this, and we're witnessing this firsthand. What are you seeing in practice, man? Is the energy good? Give myself and the audience your perspective on how this team is doing in terms of watching them in practice.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, based on, just like you said about Steph and Brandon Pajemski, that interaction, there's been all kinds of those interactions. I mean, practices from what we've seen, and I want to be clear here, right? We got to see the very last portion cool down on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Got to see a little bit of scrimmaging on Friday. Same kind of thing yesterday, some cool down stuff. And then today, a little more active. But overall, they weren't practicing as a team at that point. That being said, guys seem to be having fun. They seem to be enjoying each other's company. I want to highlight King of the Court, right? We got to see some of that. Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton II, Kevon Looney, Moses Moody, Jerry Stackhouse, and Jacob Rubin are involved running it. Stack is participating and getting out there and still guarding and trying to get his offense going. So that gives you, a little bit of everybody's in on it. Everybody's having a good time. The vibes are good and really, really positive right now internally within the Warriors. And yeah, the practices, from what I've seen, very much been an extension of what we've seen publicly. I think another thing to highlight, look at the way that the Warriors reacted when Lindy Waters made his game winner on Saturday, right? You have the whole team out there celebrating, mobbing him in on it. Yeah, it's preseason, but that shows something, that this matters. This means something, and being together means something. So again, we got to see how it plays out. It's a long season. We don't know what this means, what it means for their record, what it means for their style of play. What we do know that it means is that these are the signs. These are for the Warriors, for Warriors fans, probably what you want to see or hear about it at this time of year.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Again, the vibes are high, and they from what it seems like, they've established an identity in terms of the way that they wanted to play as well. So yeah.
Which is important, man. I mean, I feel like that was an issue for this team last year. You heard Stephen Curry talking about that a lot. There were attributions where he was saying publicly, we need to find an identity, right? Especially with that poor start they had. So if they're finding that now, that's a great sign, dude, right? In terms of their strengths, who they are as a team, and how they're going to win games. One thing that's different from last year to this year, and you were covering this team last year, so from your perspective, this is particularly interesting, is that last year when you saw Steve Kerr, he was a little more laid back. He had his buddy Bruce Frazier next to him. Kenny Atkinson was the assistant coach. Kenny's gone. Bruce is sitting behind Steve. Steve seems more serious now than he has been in recent years. Like, there is an edge to him. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. This is just my observation and what I'm seeing. And perhaps the biggest difference when seeing that game Saturday, the preseason opener, is him surrounded by two brand new faces. Mm-hmm. Terry Stotts, who he never really had much of a relationship before this season, but he still picked him as the number one assistant. Jerry Stackhouse, another former player, now current coach, another player or individual who Kerr did not have this extensive relationship with. And from my perspective, that's a great thing, man. That means Kerr is willing to get challenged. That means Kerr is willing to get a little uncomfortable by bringing these fresh new individuals that he doesn't have this comfort level with. That's a good thing from what I'm seeing. What are you seeing in terms of the impact of Terry Stotts, Jerry Stackhouse, the coaches in general? What's the vibe like for you from that side of things?
Well, I think you make a great point, right? That Steve Kerr, four-time NBA championship coach, is willing to solicit outside, new opinions, and willing to adapt and change some of what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're still going to run a lot of their motion principles. That's not being abandoned by any means. You have Stephen Curry. You're going to want to get him going off the ball. But as it pertains to Terry Stotts, and we're going to continue to see some of these things as the preseason plays out, he's going to incorporate some new wrinkles. There is going to be a little bit more structure in the half court. I think you saw some quick hitting pick and roll actions. And Kerr said yesterday, look, he wants the screening to be cleaner, liked the movement, liked the pace on Saturday. But execution still needs to improve. So
Mhm.
we still haven't seen, I don't think, a fraction of what Terry Stotts is going to implement. Those things take time. You have new personnel, some new acts, and some new sets. But Kerr wanted a little bit more structure, and Terry Stotts has provided that throughout his coaching career with Portland, albeit with a very different, through very different means than Steve Kerr, right? A lot of heavy pick and roll stuff. They have one of the best offenses in the NBA, just like the Warriors did, running their motion. So you're going to see, I think, a little bit more structure when they get in the half court. Still a lot of free-flowing, up-tempo basketball. This team wants to play really, really fast. They want to attempt a lot of three-pointers. They're deep, like you mentioned, Cyrus, with guards and wings in particular, conducive to an up-tempo style that involves a lot of three-pointers. And again, some refining of their half-court offensive principles with Stotts. As it pertains to Stackhouse, his fingerprints already all over the defense. I mean, it's pretty clear that that's the side of the ball that he's running. He's very active on the sideline on Saturday, coaching and coaching up his guys. And what we saw were the seeds of a pretty frenetic defense. A lot of wings, a lot of guards. Much better at the point of attack. That was a weakness last year. Their point of attack defense. Now they have several options at the point of attack. You can switch. You can play faster. You can get up and down. You can use your offense to set up your defense to set up your offense, vice versa. And Stackhouse has a lot to do with that on that regard. So both assistants, very well respected, right? Their pedigrees speak for themselves. Terry Stotts, an incredibly accomplished head coach. Jerry Stackhouse has been a head coach in the G League. He's been a head coach in college, and again, a tremendous player.
Yep.
Who has credibility in that regard too.
Yep.
In the 90s and 2000s. So yeah, I think to your point, it's Kerr understanding that from his perspective, let's take this thing as far as we can go.
Yeah.
And that might be in bringing in new voices. So he still wants to win. You don't get 9 NBA championships and an Olympic gold medal without being a relentless competitor. And Steve Kerr is that still at this stage of his career. So I think we're seeing that. We've seen it in camp. We're going to see how it plays out during the season.
Oh yeah, I've never denied Kerr's competitive nature. The dude you have to want to win if you're going to get 9 rings and counting on your resume. And so far, again, it's only one preseason game, and training camp's been a week plus. But so far, you have to like what you're seeing and hearing. You wrote a great piece that I feel like stated obvious things that most people are just not really aware of or don't really think about much, and it's certainly a topic that outside of this program, I don't see it addressed much, which is there are 240 minutes total to give out to 5 NBA players, right, for a game. And per game, if I have my math right. Is it 2, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
48 minute game, right? So 5 times 40, 200, 5 times 8, 40.
Thank you. Thank you. Should be easy, but I suddenly lost myself there for a second. Thank you for putting me back on track. So the point is that this is a team that it's going to be hard to find people minutes. You mentioned in your recent story, or one of your recent stories, that Kerr likes 10-man rotations, and there are just not enough minutes for that. We saw DeAnthony Melton start in game 1. And Andrew Wiggins, and I want to touch on him in a second because I know you had a chance to interview him, and your most recent piece is about his recovery from this illness. I want to ask you that in just one moment, but from what you're seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the gist I'm getting between following individuals like yourself, doing my own research, is Guy Santos probably an odd man out, and there's going to be 3 more. Who do you think is going to be, who's in that 10 right now, and who's the odd man out? And please tell me Moses Moody's not one of those odd men out, but I'm getting the feeling that even with his great game in game 1, that he might be a victim here. What are you sensing? Anything? This might just be your opinion, but what's your takeaway for who's going to be that 10 that plays?
I think it's right now. I still think that's up in the air. That's what these next few weeks are going to decide. But this, I think, was one of the issues that the Warriors ran into in some ways last year, right? The personnel might be different, but you got on this team, Kerr mentioned yesterday, 13 guys that he thinks are rotation, players. And to your point, I think Guy Santos still in that development stage.
Yeah.
Maybe some spot minutes for him like there were last season, but I at least right now, not necessarily a regular. We understand that. This is what training camp is for. This is what the competition piece is all about. There's going to be a lot, there's battles going on for the back end of those rotation minutes. It feels like right now, in terms of the perimeter, it's between Gary Payton and Moses Moody for playing time on the perimeter at the very back end of that rotation. That being said, plenty of time to decide, but based on what we saw, like you mentioned, the preseason game, Moody was the 11th player to check in. Now, plenty of time left. Kerr's going to experiment with lineups and combinations. So I want to be abundantly clear. This is a process. This is going to be played out. But they didn't bring DeAnthony Melton in free agency to sit. They didn't bring in Kyle Anderson to sit. They gave Buddy Hield a 3-year deal. You would expect in some capacity he's going to get an opportunity to show what he has. We know about the young players and we know about the veterans. So it's a tough job, and it's a very, very tough call at this point. I wish I could give you a little more, but I think at this point with one preseason game, it's still a little too soon to call it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
That was a hard question, man. You answered that in an excellent manner. I know you're great, dude. You're doing fantastic. No one has that answer right now except for Steve Kerr in his head, and even he probably doesn't have that answer. I'm glad you brought up GP2 because I agree with you that he could be one of those individuals who, despite what he's getting paid, despite his role on that title team 2 years ago, there might just not be space for him. And he didn't exactly blow people out of the water in game one. He struggled on both sides of the ball, I thought. One player that I thought was actually who played great basketball was Kevon Looney. And the reason why I bring him up is because I'm curious to know, and again, it's just one game, dude. And I love how many people are overreacting from this. And I'm trying to keep this in perspective. It was only one game, but in that one game, I saw something that has been a concern for a while now, and that's the inside. Trayce Jackson-Davis was the starting center. He's only played 1 year. As well as I do, this bizarrely fascinating story about him like growing an inch this offseason, which is really weird. He had growing pains. But the reason why I bring it up is because Zubac, who is not exactly an elite center, he's a good center. I don't want to call him he's not an all-star, but he ate the Warriors up, dude. Like he was getting inside wherever he wanted. He was getting easy buckets. In 18 minutes, he had 14.6 rebounds. And it's only one game, but Trayce Jackson-Davis was so-so. I wouldn't say it was a great output from him. To you, is that an alarm, man? Like, or is anybody worried about the fact that there might be a lacking inside presence for the Warriors? Are they content with Trayce Jackson-Davis? What are you picking up there?
I'm picking up that this is how the Warriors want to play. They want to play fast and they want to play up tempo, and you're not going to be able to. They don't have the perfect roster. I mean, they just don't. So that's just the reality. It's not. They're not the Boston Celtics, right? They're just not at this juncture. What they are is a team that is deep with wings and guards, that has Steph Curry, still one of the best players in the NBA. That's going to have to cover for some of those holes, right? Like a lack of size, with team defense, with speed, with communication, with crisp rotations, with helping, with Trayce Jackson-Davis, with Kevon Looney and his experience, with Draymond Green, right? With their wing players, with Andrew Wiggins, with Jonathan Kuminga. It's going to be a team effort, I think, to for certain matchups. And you have some of those more rugged centers that are, like Zubac, who's big and physical, and then you have some of your traditional low post centers that can go to work. No, you can't take away everything. Conversely, what the Warriors are also going to do, right? Their counter is they're going to play with pace and try and negate some of the bigs that way, right? So we're going to have to see how it plays out. But yeah, they constructed this team in a very specific way. They clearly feel good, at least right now, about the bigs they have on the roster. And this is a team that's built based on the perimeter. It's perimeter depth, it's wing depth, and built around, still Stephen Curry. So it's going to be team defense. That's what it's going to take to deal with some of those issues that they have without size. But they're committed to a style of play. This is what they believe in. It's what they've believed in pretty much the entire time Steve Kerr's been here. They haven't traditionally had a lot of girth on the interior, and this year's one of the same things. So overall, I think they feel good, at least right now, with where they're at, with Trayce Jackson-Davis, his ability to rim run, and then with Looney, his low post defense, his experience. He's in tremendous condition. He understood the assignment this offseason, very, very self-aware, and somebody that I think can still contribute in certain spots. So yeah, this is a perimeter team. It's not an interior team, and they're going to be challenging some matchups against certain centers. I don't think there's no doubt about that. I can't hear you.
Oh my goodness! Thank you for
There
that.
we go.
I
There we
did.
go.
This is. Oh my god! No, thank you for that. I apologize. I was muted there for a second, and that is an issue on my end. I'm working out. That's why it's the preseason, right? To work these issues out. Yeah. And what I was saying there is that Quentin Post. I don't think he's quite ready for the responsibility of heavy minutes. He seems more like a developmental player at this point. Would you agree with that? Is that the gist you're getting to?
Yeah. And Curry, said last week that probably going to be spending a lot of time in Santa Cruz, but they do like him. They like what he brought. There's a physicality that he brought to training camp that he brings to practice. And Kerr, said they've never really had a true stretch big before, right?
True.
He gives them, if it all goes according to plan, and we have to see how this year plays out, how next year plays out, he gives them potentially a different look. At 7 feet, 40% three-point shooter in college, and getting acclimated now, getting his feet wet at the NBA level.
It's I guess Boogie Cousins is the closest thing that they've had. I don't even know if Boogie was shooting threes at that point in his career, though. I don't know, but you're right. It's a new thing for the Warriors, and hopefully this kid develops, because I love to see Quentin Post at his potential and what he can do for the Warriors. How's Andrew Wiggins, man? He missed game one. Clearly he's ill. I mean, I was actually relieved seeing him. I don't know if you had you could see it from where you were sitting in the media, but he had the mask on, and that was a relief, man. He's not, if it's contagious, do not spread that love. That is not the kind of love you want to give to other people. And he almost looks like he lost a little weight. Like what do you know about what he's struggling with, and what are you seeing from him in terms of his recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you go out to training camp, you go to Hawaii, and then he's just not able to participate. Certainly disappointing for him. He acknowledged as much during his press conference today, right? What I will say is everybody around the Warriors was pleased with the condition that he showed up in, and there's not any long-term concern about his availability. Might he miss a couple preseason games? Yeah, he already missed one. He's not playing tomorrow. We'll see about the games this weekend and next week, and so on and so forth. But Andrew Wiggins is a veteran. He's experienced. He knows what the pace of the regular season is like. And I get the sense that he's going to be ready to go and to get you ready to be a big part of what they do this season, of what they do. I think the up-tempo style, and he said it himself. I asked him how he feels his game fits in a fast-paced style, and he likes it. I mean, this is conducive to what he does. He's 6'7", one of the best athletes in the league. He's 29 years old. He's in his prime, and the Warriors are going for both ends. What he is shown to be capable of providing. So still has to go out there and do it, but the Warriors seem convinced that he's going to resemble the player that was the second best player in the final series, more so than the player that
Mm-hmm.
had his ups and downs last year, and he certainly has the pedigree to do so. So there's reason to believe that. I think he's going to be just fine.
Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot here and give you a trivia question. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
How old is Kevon Looney?
28.
Oh, you got that? Okay. Did you know that? Yeah, you must have known that, right? Like, because I feel like if the average person who doesn't cover this team closely would never guess he's still in his 20s. Like, he's younger than Andrew Wiggins. It's insane. People treat him like he's an old man, dude. Anyway, so I feel like Looney's looking great. The Warriors are traveling to Sacramento for the next preseason game. That's tomorrow. We're going to cover that live here with the post-game edition of Golden Days, as we do after every game. What you're going to Sacramento? You're going to be covering the Warriors at Golden One Center. I'm guessing. I'm assuming, but I hope I'm correct. What are you looking forward to in Game 2 of the preseason? Is going to be similar to Game 1, where we get that like hockey substitution and Kerr wants every player in the game, or are we going to start seeing some tightening of the rotations? What do you expect?
I think we're gonna see still a bunch of different looks. I mean, this is still the preseason. I liken it to, I'm wearing a boxing shirt right now. Chico Corrales and Castillo, the third fight that was supposed to happen, but I liken it to like sparring in boxing. These teams are sparring right now, right? They're practicing. You're practicing different looks. You're practicing different combinations. You're experimenting with different things. You don't want to show too much. You want to show some things, but you don't want to show too much. I think for right now, Kerr, the Warriors, the brass are just in data collecting mode. I mean, he said that he's going to continue tinkering with lineups. We didn't get a chance to hear from him today. I don't know if it's going to be the same starting group as it was yesterday, but it might be. And the front court combination, Trace Jackson Davis, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, that started the other night. I think we're gonna see that repped again. And you're not gonna know what you got until you have a certain amount of reps to see what it looks like. That grouping, I think, played like 6 minutes or 12 minutes or something last year. So these are still really important reps for everybody involved. I think we're going to see mixing and matching and different combinations, and still see some of the depth. And then I would expect as the preseason continues and trickles away that we're going to get maybe a better look at more clearly defined combinations. But still too early to define anything at this point for sure.
And again, your interview with Kerr last year was the interview that revealed to the world that Kerr makes a lot of these decisions with his gut, right? And that again, marvelous journalism, bro. One of the big goals, especially with interviews, is to get information, new information. You did that. That was phenomenal. And I am personally so relieved that Kerr has surrounded himself again with people that are not his friends, right? Nothing against Bruce Frazier. I love Bruce Frazier as a person. Every time we hang out, we talk surfing. He's got a spot down in Baja that he brings it's a surf shack down in about halfway down the peninsula. It's incredible. But at the same time, it's not conducive for success surrounding yourself with yes man. I don't know if Bruce goes that far, but you want to be challenged, right? You want differing opinions. You want as many new ideas as possible. And my hope is that Kerr, when he makes these final decisions for who plays, does bring some of that input in from these new perspectives in Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse. So that's how I feel about that. From what you're seeing in practice, and we'll wrap it up here because I know I've had you for really long, brother, and I'm sorry about that.
You're good.
Okay, thanks, man. Is the competition healthy? Is there any animosity? I mean, these individuals are fighting for jobs. What's the competition like, man? How serious is the competition between these guards and everyone else who's fighting for minutes?
I think it's serious, right? It's definitely serious, but at the same time, it can be serious and friendly at the same time. I don't sense any animosity coming from anybody. This is a team. This is a group that's becoming a basketball team, certainly trying to become a basketball team. We're not going to know what that basketball team looks like for a couple months, I would say, before we have an honest sample size where we can draw conclusions. But competition is a good thing. It raises the stakes for everybody. This is a team that missed the playoffs last season. You might be building bonds and enjoying life and whatnot, but nobody's comfortable with where this team was at last year. And that's why you saw the change. That's why you're seeing, I think, urgency on the bench with Steve Kerr. That's why you're seeing the acquisition of plug and play veterans that are ready to go. And that's why you're seeing the Warriors being patient, retaining their trade chips in case something happens right later in the year. We talk about this, this jammed rotation. That might not be the case all year, right? We don't know. There could definitely be a consolidation trade coming. There's a reason that the Warriors preserved all their trade chips. It seems like somebody in the NBA every year gets disgruntled and there's a marquee trade. So maybe we see that again and the Warriors are in on it as players. But overall, healthy competition is always good. It raises the stakes for everybody, and it sets the tone that, hey, this is, they might not be out in Hawaii and it might be the preseason now, and it's good to have fun, but this is serious business. Steph Curry wants to win. Steve Kerr wants to win. Draymond Green wants to win. Everybody on that team wants to win, and that's what it's ultimately about.
Oh, beautiful. And your colleague on the beat, Anthony Slater, wrote, I think yesterday, maybe today, that he thinks the team is going to pull off a trade. We all know that they wanted to make a trade. I still maintain that the Paul George trade is what screwed everything up. I think they, for whatever reasons, and who knows what really went down behind the scenes, but the fact that they held Wiggins out of the Olympics indicates to me that he was going to be a part of that. And I heard sources confirm that as well, and then the Clippers, who knows what happened there, man. But the point is they do want to make a deal, and Lacob wants to win. Kerr wants to win. Stephen Curry might have done the best thing possible, pulling that incredible performance in the Olympics, because it reminded the Warriors, you still have Stephen Curry in his prime, right? So you have to go all out. to surround him with talent. So there's some sort of reassurance there, at least for me, that this team is not done and that they're likely going to do something else unless everything goes according to plan with the current roster and they're kicking ass. Then why would you, right? Last question, and I'll let you go. I know you're an incredibly busy person, and I love just the fact that you join this show when you do. If you had the power to decide who the starting shooting guard is for the Golden State Warriors, you, Sam Gordon, I'm going to ask you for your opinion. Nothing factual here. This is just you being subjective, shooting the shit. Who would you name as the starting shooting guard for the Golden State Warriors?
I got to see more, but it looked pretty good with Anthony Melton out there.
Okay.
I mean, that I can say that, based on what we've seen, that seems like a natural pairing. We also understand what Brandon Podziemski looks like in that spot too. We saw that for X amount of games last season. That pairing works well together as well, with Podziemski as a secondary ball handler, a connector, his ability to move the ball and do different things. I think with the Anthony Melton, you get the length and point of attack defense on the wing. That's a perfect complement to Stephen Curry. So I can't call it right now. Too soon to call. We got to see how things play out. But what I will say is that pairing made a lot of sense that we saw on Saturday, and it feels like regardless of who starts, the Anthony Melton has a great chance to play himself into the closing lineup.
Absolutely.
Right. It put himself in. I don't know if the starting lineup and the closing lineups are going to be the same thing. They might not be. So, but I still think there are spots up for grabs, both in the starting lineup and in the rotation as a whole. And that's what these next few weeks are about. So it should be fun to follow, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night, what kind of looks we get from the Warriors and how some of those combinations mesh together.
Could you believe 2 weeks from now the NBA season starts? I don't know if it's exactly today or tomorrow. Hold on, let me look that up real fast because I got myself curious. Season opener. Sam, do you have it in front of you? No, I'm almost there. Season
2 weeks from Wednesday, right? 2 weeks from tomorrow at Portland?
Correct. October 23rd. Sam, you're going to be in Portland to cover the Warriors taking on the Trailblazers. They start the season at Portland and at Utah. I'll say this, and I don't know if this is going to be if this is controversial or not, but if the Warriors start the season 0-2, I think the finger might be leaning toward that panic button a little bit, because I don't think you should be losing to Portland and Utah to start the season. I could be wrong on that, just my opinion, but I don't think the team will be happy.
The Western Conference and maybe the NBA as a whole, right? We don't want to just sequester the West. Obviously, the Warriors play in the West, but never been more depth. At least there to me are 13 teams in the West that can convince themselves, hey, we can make the play-in at the very least. San Antonio Spurs being one of them. I said 13. The two that clearly aren't at that juncture right now are the Portland Trailblazers and the Utah Jazz. So
agreed. I strongly agree.
That being said, to your point, the expectation you would think would be 2-0. I'd imagine the Warriors will be favored in both those games, and it's a great opportunity for them in 2 weeks to build some momentum.
Absolutely. I can't believe it's two weeks away. Are you pumped, or is your perspective different from everyone else in the sense that, dude, you have to actually work like 24 hours?
I'm pumped. I love good basketball.
Nice.
I love basketball. I love talking about basketball. I love being around basketball, and the fact that I get to do this, to be a part of this is awesome. So
it is. You're living the dream, brother.
Yeah,
you're
super grateful to be on the show. Again, we'll see what happens. Nothing definitive right now. A lot to be decided between now and 2 weeks from Wednesday. And once we get going, we'll have a better feeling of how this thing shakes out. I don't think anything's decided right now by any means, rotation wise, lineup wise, and that's the fun of it. Is we get to follow along and see what happens and try and make sense of what we see.
And you're one of the hardest working individuals in this game. You do a phenomenal job, brother. I read your content. It's always on the San Francisco Chronicle. Sam Gordon, one of the very few beat writers who travels with the team. You're immersed in it, and you're doing a fantastic job, dude. I literally just the other day told Connor Letourneau, bravo. Like, you guys brought in one of the good ones. And that doesn't always happen, dude. So, Sam, I think I speak on the behalf of a lot of people behind the scenes and saying thank you. Because, dude, if you're not one of the good ones and then everyone has to deal with you all the time, dude sucks. It sucks. So just thank you, man. You're a quality human being, brother, and you do phenomenal work. Keep it up, brother. You're doing a great job, man. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to promote before we go? Twitter.
At by Sam Gordon for Warriors, news and notes and just my different perspectives and what I'm seeing, and sfchronicle.com. Got a couple games this week, and hopefully some fun stuff is going to come together in support of those games, exploring some different angles around the Warriors in 2024-25. So nothing definitive I want to promote yet, but I appreciate the kind words, Cyrus. It's always fun jumping on the show and talking basketball. I appreciate all the all your listeners and whatnot, and the emails and tweets. So yeah, we'll see how this thing goes. This is it's an 82 game season. There's 5 more preseason games. There's several more practices, and we're gonna continue to get a better and better idea of how this thing shapes up moving forward.
I love basketball, man, and I know you do too. And just always a pleasure, brother. I appreciate you coming on this program. I know everyone else does as well. Keep up the great work. Follow Sam Gordon on Twitter at @BySamGordon. BY Sam Gordon. Make sure you follow him because you're doing a great job, man. Just keep it up. And then the practice coverage is fantastic. Thank you to everyone. We're back tomorrow night. Warriors Kings. Sam, thanks, brother. Bye, everyone.
Appreciate it.